Welcome back to the Rory Talks Football channel, your daily Arsenal news updates, debates and my opinions. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Bottom right hand corner, the target at the moment is 4,400 subscribers. Today we've got Kudus, Caicedo and a bit of Mbappe news. Starting on Kudus, obviously on the channel over the last couple of days we've talked about Kudus and Arsenal's potential interest in him and how exciting that was, and I mentioned it on stream yesterday why I kind of thought he was the perfect final signing for us. But an Ornstein exclusive today, and not the sort of Ornstein exclusive that you want to see on a Saturday evening, was that Chelsea have made contact with Ajax to express interest in signing Mohamed Kudus. No offer yet, but dialogue has taken place. 22-year-old attacking midfielder among options, Chelsea considering an agreement close on personal terms. So a couple of things to take from that. No bid has been made yet. Obviously, that's a good sign to start with. 22-year-old attacking midfielder. That could be that David Ornstein's interpretation is that Kudus is an attacking midfielder, or it could be that the feeling is that Chelsea consider him as an option as an attacking midfielder, whereas it felt like for us it was more of a right-wing option. It's perfectly feasible that for Chelsea they consider him exactly the same way that we do, as a right-wing and attacking midfield option. An agreement close on personal terms. Now, realistically, pretty much any Premier League team could provide personal terms to Kudus that he'd find acceptable relative to Ajax. Really, with any transfer out of Eredivisie, personal terms are not a problem for Premier League teams. It's always a difficulty to agree a fee with the selling club. In this case, obviously, it's Ajax. Now, it does make sense as a transfer to Chelsea, to be fair, in terms of from Chelsea's perspective. Obviously, I baited some people on Twitter by suggesting that Chelsea are just copying us, but they have been interested from January or even last December. So it is one that I'm sure they could get done if they want it done. Now, obviously, there are caveats to that in the sense that if Arsenal go for him, you know, having already got Rice, Timber and Havertz done, he may well be the only player that we're trying to sign at any given time, whereas Chelsea are in for Caicedo. They probably need to sign another centre-back now that Fofana's out for the season, and so it would be more difficult for them. And I do feel like if Arsenal really want Kudus and we go head-to-head with Chelsea, we should land him. We should land him because I don't think they can massively outbid us this summer anymore, not like last summer. We're in the Champions League. Obviously, they're not in Europe at all. And I'm sure we could, you know, we could offer him maybe not the same wages as Chelsea, but incentivized bonuses and stuff that could take it there. So I feel like if ultimately we don't get Kudus, it's more likely that we just didn't want to compete with Chelsea for it. But it is frustrating. It is frustrating because I do still genuinely believe that he would be the perfect final signing for us. And that kind of moves us on to Caicedo, I guess, because whether or not Chelsea sign Kudus may well depend on what happens with Caicedo. And this came from Fabrizio, although I think it was taken from a different interview with De Zerbi, the Brighton manager, today. He said, Caicedo stays with us until my owner, Tony Bloom, changes his mind. No idea what can happen in the future, but if Moises leaves, we have to find the right player to replace him. We have to substitute him with a great player because this year we play in the Europa League, unlike Chelsea. So clearly a dig at the fact that, you know, if Caicedo was to leave to Chelsea, he'd be going from a team in the Europa League to a team that's not in Europe at all. Obviously, you could argue Caicedo with a long-term vision would see himself playing in the Champions League with Chelsea, though there's no guarantee. But it once again reminds me of what I've heard a couple of times, that there may have been, in this gentleman's agreement for Caicedo, where supposedly if an offer that was suitable came in this summer, Brighton would let him go, and that was how they got him to sign that new contract, that maybe part of that is that the team that comes in and bids a good amount for him has to be in the Champions League. That phrasing of the whole Europa League thing, it's an interesting thing to put in there. It also suggests that the relationship between Brighton and Chelsea isn't that good. You know, that's a public shot across the... Is it shot across the bow? Is that the phrase? That seems quite unnecessary. I don't really know the point of making that jab at Chelsea from De Zerbi's perspective. So I still don't think we'd be able to afford Caicedo, but the door is still open, is my feeling. That the longer that drags on, not only does it potentially help us if we're going head-to-head for Kudus, but also it leaves the door open potentially to Caicedo. I do just still think we don't have the money for it, but you never know. And what a signing that would be. And then finally, I wanted to talk about Mbappe just because I've had like 3 or 4 messages today asking if I think Arsenal should sign Mbappe. The latest from Fabrizio is that PSG consider Mbappe for sale starting from today. PSG feel Kylian Mbappe wants to leave for free in 2024. He did not communicate anything despite Al-Khelaifi's, whatever his name is, Khelaifi's public statement. PSG decide to exclude Mbappe from the Japan tour, and that's it. They want him gone. Now, Arsenal aren't going to sign Kylian Mbappe, is the first thing. Regardless of what I want, Arsenal are not signing Kylian Mbappe. RMC said that Chelsea and one other Premier League club are interested in Mbappe. The feeling is that that would have to be Man City. I don't see it being Arsenal. And also, as I've been asked the question a few times, would I sign Kylian Mbappe? The answer is no. And that isn't... There is, like, some context to that. That's not Kylian Mbappe isn't good enough for Arsenal. That's not Kylian Mbappe wouldn't massively elevate Arsenal's level. It is... Kylian Mbappe long-term would be more problematic than I think he'd be worth. And that's because he would cost so much. Like, so ridiculously much. And it's kind of similar to how... You know, I'd love to drive a Ferrari. I would love for my car to be a Ferrari. But for me to find a way of driving a Ferrari and getting a Ferrari, it would cripple me financially. Like, great, I'd be driving around in a Ferrari, but I'd have no house, I'd have no food, I'd have nothing else. It would cripple me in every other sense. So, for me, for the position that Arsenal are in financially, not that there's any chance of it happening anyway, I would not sign Kylian Mbappe. I just pray that he goes to Real Madrid. I genuinely do. If he joined... I mean, I can't see him joining Chelsea. I think going to Saudi would just be tragic. And, of course, going to Man City would just, create an even bigger chasm between Man City and everyone else. So I guess the best is that he goes to Real Madrid. Time will tell. It's not going to be Arsenal. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm actually going to be live again, depending on when you're watching this. I'm going to be live for the Man United Arsenal watch-along from 9:30. Tune in for that. And other than that, if you don't, enjoy the game. Have a good evening. It's a Saturday night. Please do subscribe, smash a like on the video, and cheers.